Good evening. Welcome to Stay Tuned. I'm Casey Nolan. Tonight we are talking arts in St. Louis. Besides entertaining, even inspiring, what can the arts do for our community? Can they really make us a better place to live in a meaningful and even measurable way? Tonight we're touching on several topics. We're going to explore, can the arts really help our economy? Can they turn around a struggling neighborhood, or can they even train a more innovative and creative workforce? You might be surprised at what our guests have to say, so stay tuned. Okay, we're starting tonight's show with Dan Tierney from the Regional Arts Council. Dan, no pressure, but we want you to set the stage for us here. Get us out of the harbor here in the right direction. I'll start with a general question. What do you think the arts mean to our region, to the St. Louis region as a whole?
I think it's a livability. It's about community. It brings a worth, education. I mean, the arts are important in every aspect of our lives, and I think this is a great community to start with and to discuss about the arts.
And I said in the little tease there off the top, can we measure that? Is there a meaningful impact the arts have that we can actually measure? Let's talk dollars and cents a little bit here. What do the arts mean to the St. Louis region in terms of real dollars?
And economically, we just recently completed a survey in 2012, and we came up with $583 million on the economic impact that the arts have. Job-wise, we're over 10,000 employed, and on visits and attendance, we're over 11.3 million. All increases from the last time we did this economic impact survey, which we did in 2007. And every single one of them, we saw an increase from 2007.
And if, in case anybody's wondering, you say $583 million impact. I mean, people might be at home saying, well, they must be including movie tickets at the multiplex to get such a huge number. What makes up that big number?
The number actually comes from the not-for-profits. All of our studies came from, including the ZMD district, the Zoo Museum District, yeah. And also includes all of our not-for-profits only in the St. Louis City and County region. Unfortunately, we didn't go over into Illinois and Belleville or out in St. Charles. All those have vibrant arts communities on top of it, but our studies stuck to basically the Regional Arts Commission's funding region, which was St. Louis City and County. And we've been doing the study for the last 20 years. We've done it for every 5 years. We keep doing this study, and it's just nice to see this kind of growth.
So safe to say those could be conservative numbers there if you got a little larger base.
If you included, if you wanted to say the Fox or some of the for-profits, I think the numbers would be off, even much greater than that. But just looking at our not-for-profit organizations that participated, this is the numbers we got, and very impressive.
So if that's a surprise to some folks, would you say that we are unique in the country in any way, or is that pretty standard in terms of how a city can benefit, or what else makes us unique, I guess I should say?
Well, on the economic numbers, there's probably, on a national level, I think from cities our size, I think we're close to the top. What makes us unique and the way we get there is partially from the support that we get from the ZMD tax. The Regional Arts Commission gets a hotel motel tax. We have Arts and Education Council who does the United Fund. They do their corporate fundraising, and then we have the state agencies. All of those contribute to the economic part of it and help these organizations really strive. And then the real uniqueness is those individual organizations that are out there. From the St. Louis Symphony all the way down to smaller local arts agencies and local projects that are done throughout this community. I think the uniqueness is the many, many neighborhoods that are out there and how broad of a spectrum that we fund. And that's always really impressive to me, is that we fund all the way up to North St. Louis and Florissant, all the way out to Eureka, down into the South City, South County, all these different little pockets that we have. And then in Grand Center, we fund a lot of organizations in Grand Center, and it's never ending.
You mentioned, we've talked a lot about civic pride here on Stay Tuned. You mentioned something that the neighborhoods and also the symphony. That's something that's come up in other discussions that we sometimes we kind of play above our heads to some degree when it comes to some of our cultural resources. Is that a valid argument to say, but we've got a world-class symphony that cities our size don't normally have?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that I often wonder, with the symphony and opera and everything else, if I go to another city, am I able to get that kind of arts and culture enriched in my life living in those other communities? Fortunately, I've been living in St. Louis the whole time, so I can't step out and go to those other communities. But I've seen a lot of the other ones, and it's true. We have some of the big gems in the country. But I also think that our mid-sized organizations and our small organizations are the ones that really strengthen those. They bring the students, they bring the kids, they are down to their level, talking the arts to them in their neighborhood, and then bringing that interest all the way back up. So the symphony is populated with a lot of the people from the neighborhoods. So
a vibrant arts community that not only enriches our lives and livability, as you said, but puts real dollars into our economy, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time, Dan Tierney, Regional Arts Council. We're going to go over to Ed Reggie now, because your voice is important to what we're talking about here tonight. We want you to catch us on what we're not talking about and give us some feedback on what we are. Ed is going to tell you how that happens. Ed?
Thanks, Casey. Well, Casey is correct. You are actually drive the conversation tonight. So there's a couple ways you can help out. First off, we're asking you, do the arts equal dollars? So if you'd like to answer that, we've made it easy for you. We put a graphic up, an image on our Facebook page, the 9 Network. We want you to go there and put your response on the Facebook page and tell us what you think. What are your personal stories about the arts and how they have an impact in this region? We also want you to join in on Twitter. We made it easy by giving you a hashtag called StayTunedSTL. Tell us what you think. We're going to use it throughout the show. And so head on there and tell us what you're thinking.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Ed will be curating, to use an arts term, tonight, so we're looking forward to your input on social media. Okay, we've touched on a lot of the reasons the arts contribute, a lot of the ways the arts contribute to a vital community, but let's take a little bit of a deeper dive on the economics of the arts with the help from our friends at the Reynolds Journalism Institute at the University of Missouri.
They're waiting on one more family. Do you want to wait for them or just get started?
Tag along on a tour at the St. Louis Art Museum, and you might just meet Sherry Williams.
They're brand new.
She admits she's no artist.
It does give me the opportunity to learn more about art, to actually teach others about art.
But she benefits greatly, financially, from the arts community in the region. Institutions like the St. Louis Art Museum, as well as smaller galleries, all contribute immensely to the economy with jobs, something you might not think of when you walk into a museum for free.
The ultimate impact of the museum is not just in enriching people's lives or the contribution to the arts community that we represent, but actually in a dollars and cents economic way as well.
And those dollars and cents add up. According to a study conducted by the Regional Arts Commission in 2010, the economic impact of the arts in the region totals close to $600 million. That comes in the form of jobs for people like Sherry, business for regional companies, and revenue from tourism.
The arts are critical to me, to the future of St. Louis and the vitality of St. Louis.
And the numbers show it. In 2010, people going to arts events spent approximately $25, excluding the ticket cost. And when you add up things like a hotel stay, a purchase at the museum gift shop, and a nice dinner at a local restaurant, the amount an individual spends on an art experience totals much more than the admission price.
For the last 5 years, the impact has grown. It has grown in the face of the worst recession our country has faced. So the arts really do mean business. They are there, they're stalwarts, they provide those jobs.
Expansion at the St. Louis Arts Museum translates to 200 jobs for the project. And after the expansion is complete, the museum will add 25 new jobs to the payroll. In the last 5 years, employment in the arts across the region rose 14%. Sherry was hired during that time.
And it's kind of the artist expressing how great of an artist he is.
And is thankful for the opportunity to teach, But when it comes down to it, the job also pays the bills.
Well, I appreciate being employed.
And so the next time you have an art experience in St. Louis, which could be the next time you head to the museum for a tour, or the next time you turn onto Market Street downtown, you might just think about the impact of that work, much more than a masterpiece, much more than that for the entire region of St. Louis. For Stay Tuned, this is Jennifer Long reporting.
Okay, we're using the magic of the internets tonight with Google Hangout to go to Washington, D.C. and speak with a man by the name of Randy Cohen with Americans for the Arts. Hi, Randy. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening. Great to be with you.
So we've started to scratch the surface a little bit here of this whole economic impact of the arts idea. You really led the way in kind of making this a really measurable something you can actually measure. So help us out. Are we on the right track here? Does 500 plus, almost 600 we just heard in the package from RJI there. Does that sound right in St. Louis, the economic impact of the arts?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's a great story because, you know, we love the arts. I mean, you said it in your lead-in. You know, they inspire us, they delight us, they entertain us. But the fact is, arts are also an industry in this country. And nationally, they're a $135 billion industry, billion with a B. Wow. That supports 4.1 million jobs. But right there in St. Louis, a $582 million industry. And what's interesting is the arts organizations themselves spend $313 million of that every year. And that's a mythbuster for a lot of people. Yeah. Again, we love the arts, you know, they create the communities that we want to live in. But the fact is, they're businesses. They employ people locally. They purchase goods and services in the community. They're involved in the marketing and promotion of the region, right? So they're really good for tourism. So arts are businesses.
It takes money to keep the lights on, and they're putting that back into the community.
Absolutely right. You know, the utility bill, they're paying people. You know, the arts organizations are renting apartments for their musicians, and you know, it just goes on and on. And it's just not intuitive. We just don't think of it that way. So like all businesses, of course, the arts, you know, have an economic impact. But unlike most industries, the arts generate all this event-related spending, and we heard some about that as well. And
that's again, something you've looked into as well. You've actually studied and found out where this money is coming from.
Right. In fact,
what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, with Dan's organization there, the Regional Arts Commission, and Jill, and you heard from both of them. We did about 1,800 interviews with arts attendees across the St. Louis area. And what you heard, we found they spend on average $24 per person per event beyond the cost of admission. And that's based on over 11 million attendees. So lots of economic activity. But we did one other thing that's pretty interesting. We asked each of those 1,800 people we interviewed for their zip code, because we wanted to find out, do you live in the community, in the St. Louis area, which would make you local, or are you from outside the area, non-local? And what we found, 27% of the attendees come from outside of St. Louis, and they average about $35 per person per event. So lots of economic activity, and the arts are drawing people into the community. How do we know? Well, we actually asked them one additional question. We asked those non-local attendees, really quite simply, why are you here? Yeah. You visiting family? Are you here on business?
What was your primary reason?
Yeah, exactly. 72%, almost 3 out of 4 said, we came specifically for this arts event. So now you start to see arts and culture, when we invest in it, we're investing, you know, in this product that's improving our quality of life and building the communities that we want to live in, but we're drawing people to the community. They're spending lots of money. So
and Dan talked about his numbers kind of being conservative too. Are you safe to say those are conservative numbers you're talking about as well?
Absolutely. Number one, these are only nonprofit arts organizations we're talking about. So your symphony, your theater, your arts education organizations. And, we surveyed 202 arts organizations in the community, heard back from about 140 of them. That's what we go with. Yeah. So, we only use the data we collect. Very conservative, very reliable. We work with a team of economists from Georgia Tech School of Economics. Top drawer stuff. Yeah. And as you heard earlier, supports 19,000 jobs right there in St. Louis and $58 million to local and state government.
Okay, I know you've done some other work too, besides, well, I shouldn't say besides the dollars, because I think this all kind of ties into the dollars, but you've looked at the arts and what the arts mean to use in quotation marks, youth at risk, something that kind of covers a lot of a wide spectrum of young people. But what have you seen there? And how does that tie into our local economy too?
Well, it ties in wonderfully. Youth at risk, we had to take a pretty broad definition. Yeah. I consider any kid with a school locker, a youth at risk, right? Well, we worked with the U.S. Department of Justice, and we looked at arts programs, young people who had been adjudicated or were, somehow criminally involved, and looked at young people who were put into arts programs and then compared to similar ones who were not in the arts programs. The young people in the arts programs, more pro-social behavior, less recidivism, better performance academically. So you're actually saving money by keeping kids out of the justice system, and you're really, you're building a workforce, you're getting educated kids.
Talk more about the workforce. A lot of times we hear that the arts teaches us something that maybe math and science does not. Not to get down on the math and science, but and the 3 R's. But can the arts do something for a workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course you got to be able to read, write, and do math, but creativity is so important. In fact, we work with the Conference Board. That's the organization for the Fortune 1000 companies in this country, and they give you the leading index of economic indicators and some other important business measures. Their research shows that creativity has soared to the top 5 applied skills that business leaders are looking for. And in fact, it's leapfrogged the 3 R's. And I think what that says is, well, if you can do reading, writing, and math, but that's it. Those are the jobs, those are $15 an hour jobs headed overseas. But if you can be creative, if you can optimize an existing product or create a whole new market, 10 years ago, who knew we all needed iPads? But here we are, right? Those are the $115 an hour jobs right here in the States, and they're staying here. Interestingly, 72% of business leaders say creativity is of high importance in hiring, yet 85% of those people say we're struggling to find the people that we're looking for. But the biggest indicators for creativity among these business leaders, study of the arts while in college, especially in creating a business, starting your own business.
Randy Cohen, thank you so much. A lot of ground we covered there in terms of how our workforce can be better, our young people can be helped, and then again, back to that nearly $600 million impact here in St. Louis. Okay, well, coming up, we're talking on a more of a micro level about what the arts can do for a community, but first, let's go back to social media. We want to know what's resonating with you in tonight's program so far. Okay, we're coming back into the studio. Don't call me out. I stand and wait till they say to walk. We've gone over this every week. I'm sorry, but it makes for a nice active environment, I feel like. So first quick introductions. Juan Chavez, local artist here in St. Louis, but also activist. So we'll get into that and how those two worlds overlap. And Stacy Morse, Chesterfield Arts. Thank you for being here. And Patti Gregory, Belleville, Art on the Square. We want to talk about what the arts can do kind of on a smaller level. We've heard the hundreds of millions of dollars that sometimes can be a little vague and hard to kind of wrap our heads around, but let's talk about what it does on an individual community. I'll start with you, Patti, because I've been to Belleville several times, and I've seen over the last few years a physical transformation in downtown Belleville, a very historic town with old neighborhoods, but the downtown Belleville is changing. We got new sidewalks and fountains are improved and different things. I'm curious, the arts play any role in the transformation we're seeing there?
Oh, the arts definitely played a role in the transformation of downtown Belleville. In 2002, we had our very first Art on the Square, and it was totally embraced by the community. And after that, the city fathers got together and decided to do a $7 million revitalization streetscape of downtown. And since then, we've also had about 17 new businesses move in, and which is really unusual because of the big malls. A lot of the downtowns were hurt, and the big box stores.
So first, Art on the Square is what? Give us Art on the Square definition. Help people understand if they haven't been.
Art on the Square is the #1 art show in the past several years in the whole United States. And we're a juried show that brings in 105 artists from all over the world.
And how did you see that translate into the downtown in terms of making it a better place to live?
Well, I knew that Belleville was always a community that embraced the arts. We were home of the 2nd oldest Philharmonic in the nation. So I knew that Art on the Square would be well received in the community, and because of that, people just really pulled together and have started this revitalization of the whole downtown. It's a very vibrant area now, and that's great because that attracts other people to come downtown, and of course then you have the residual spending that Randy was speaking of, and so it's been a great economic impact for the city of Belleville.
So maybe a little more pride in the community. Does that resonate with you? Does that sound familiar? And have you seen that work other places?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, my background is you know, I'm an artist, but I'm also like interested in community art and stuff. I have a history of working on Cherokee Street, which is a great example of, you know, the big question: what do you do with vacancy? What do you do with a neighborhood that's been kind of in the shadow for some time? And you know, artists have a great potential of creating something out of nothing. You know, they're amazing problem solvers, and they kind of get the ball rolling. And you know, when culture and art happens, it attracts more artists, more people, and then it creates energy, and that energy turns into civic pride.
When I think of Chesterfield, I don't think of a lot about vacancy and maybe I don't even think of problems. but what do the arts mean to Chesterfield, to West County, where the issues are different?
Well, I think one of the things that makes us unique is we're a relatively young community.
Yeah.
So here we have an opportunity to help shape the future of the city of Chesterfield, but not just Chesterfield, the whole West County region. So we're really using the arts as an attraction, and hopefully to become a destination ultimately, so that we've got, you know, I think every and all communities should have some form of the arts. So certainly in the county as much as we've got it in the city and Grand Center. So we really use that as a piece to help build the character of a young emerging community. It'll be 25 years old this year, and we're really celebrating that. And fortunately, city leadership has really embraced what the arts can do. They've seen us in action, they've seen the impact of it, and now it's translating into businesses wanting to be part of that movement, and it's a pretty exciting time for us.
So are you saying that we're talking about giving a part of the area a little bit of an identity to some degree? And do you see that in your communities? Is that something that actually happens?
I definitely think it happened in Belleville because, well, for example, Art on the Square brought national attention to the city of Belleville, and in a positive way, which is a great thing when that happens. So I definitely think it has done that.
Same thought? I mean, and what have you seen that do?
Oh, I mean, I think, you know, when identity, happens, I mean, you know, the arts, kind of have this contagious energy, and you know, when people get more involved, I mean, when you have art events, people come, dialogue is formed. So it's not just like art events or art itself, but it's just the kind of you know, the waves that kind of come after that, and you get a really sense of, you know, not just individual efforts, but a community coming together and saying, you know, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going to enrich our lives, this is how we're going to stimulate our neighborhoods, and it's very, you know, creates a really strong sense of identity.
Maybe I set you up as a little bit of like 3 separate areas, 3 separate identities, 3 separate sets of challenges. What do you think the 3 areas of the region have in common as it pertains to the arts? I'll open that up to anyone. Was that, or are there such similarities?
Well, I think one of the things that we do is we're really good at collaborating. So we work with many of the same artists, the different arts institutions, to really get movement throughout the entire region. We're not kind of isolationists, only working in our own pockets. So we make a strong effort to connect with artists and performers and poets and actors as much as everybody else does. And by doing that, we're also giving them employment. We're showcasing them in the different demographic areas from the regional standpoint. And I think that overlap is really powerful and benefits everybody in a real win-win situation.
Do you see that, Juan? I mean, sometimes in other areas of our lives, we hear about competition just across one side of the line between city and county. Do you see more overlap in the arts, or do?
Oh yeah, I mean, the arts is a great example. I mean, I've worked in a lot of different cities, and St. Louis, to this day, still surprised me of what kind of collaborative nature we are. I mean, I've worked with organizations like the Pulitzer Foundation, very established institutions, and I've worked with grassroots organizations like the Old North Restoration Group. So, I mean, everyone's really happy to share resources, share ideas, get together. I mean, at the end of the day, is when everyone works together, that's when, you know, really like major changes happen in communities. I mean, art can't really save the day always, but you know, it's a combination with other things, other disciplines. Like that's like a really good partnership.
And you touched on it a little bit. Do you see arts inspiring or encouraging entrepreneurship?
Oh yes, I do, because I think when people and businesses look for areas to relocate, they're looking for places that they have skilled and creative workers.
We touched on that just a minute ago. So,
correct.
And a livability too?
And the quality of life issues become very important for employers, for their employees. And I think we all know how well art is involved with the quality of life. Mm-hmm. And as far as what we were talking about the collaboration, I found it very interesting that Randy was speaking about the 27% that of attendees from outside the St. Louis area. Right. Well, actually in Belleville last year, we were 28% of St. Louis coming to our side of the river.
More overlap, more collaboration, more inspiring, more, yes, and helping each other perhaps create that identity in the individual communities that you're talking about. Thank you all very much, we appreciate it. Coming up, we're going to talk, we'll have more on social media with what you're talking about, but first we want to go out on the street and hear what folks are telling us the arts mean to them in their personal lives.
Arts is very just intriguing just to the mind, and it's thought-provoking, and it gets people to have conversation. It gets people to bring in community and talk to people that they never decided to talk about, or have conversations that they never would have had before.
Once the artist moves in, and like the neighborhood starts to come back alive, and it's just really great to see the Cherokee district, you know, coming back.
A lot of students I know in high school and middle school get into the arts, and it helps to get kids off the street.
The arts have inspired me to create my own business and to have an outlet by making jewelry.
Well, I live very close by here to the Loop, and I feel it has improved the neighborhood.
The community itself, I think it just really brightens up. I mean, you look at the Loop compared to most other places in the city, you see it everywhere you go. You see it in the bike racks.
I really enjoy the arts, and when it comes to about other cultures, I really enjoy learning about different people.
Back in the studio now with Todd Swanstrom from the University of Missouri St. Louis. Other than Jason Rosenbaum from the St. Louis Beacon, I think you might be our first repeat guest, so thank you for coming back and gracing us with your time again. I guess we didn't scare you off the first time.
Glad to be here, Casey. It's a great program, great station.
Well, okay, that's enough of that. Okay, but although you tried to tell me to change my narrative last time, now I'm on a tangent. Let's refocus. Kind of like when I talked to Jason in this same spot, I want to talk to you about something that's kind of in the news. The embedded arts in something called the Kresge Project. Can you fill us in? What is this, and why are we hearing about this?
Sure. The Kresge is a national foundation that has given a $100,000 grant to the Greater St. Louis Community Foundation, and they're working with the Regional Arts Commission, which we've heard a lot about tonight.
Right.
And it's a planning grant, basically, to try to figure out how we in St. Louis can best connect arts with community development. How can we have the arts be part of helping disadvantaged communities that are trying to lift themselves up, improve their communities and become better communities?
Okay, so first, is that something the arts can do? I mean, we've touched on that a little bit at the table there about identity and how it brings the sense of pride in your community. But that's a tall order, it sounds like.
Definitely, the arts. It's a national phenomenon that cities all around the country are using the arts. And maybe 20 years ago they were using the arts in the sense of what I call the iconic arts. The symphonies, the big institutions, the museums on a hill. Now it's much more what's called the embedded arts. The artists who are down in the street level, who have maybe a street level business, a small gallery, a loft, whatever, and they're working with young people. And those kinds of arts can make a big difference in a community. The art by itself cannot turn a community around, but if it's part of an initiative, and it has a kind of natural cluster and natural evolution, you can build on that and hopefully reach a kind of tipping point in a neighborhood where you can create the pride in the neighborhood, you can create the identity of the neighborhood, and you can get people involved. And I think perhaps the most important thing that the arts can do is bridge the social divide. When people experience the arts, when they come and hear the blues or whatever, they're really cutting across the boundaries, right? And bridging that divide. It's called bridging social capital is the term. Mm-hmm. If you can bridge these divides, you can bring the community together, it can have a big impact on community development.
So, okay, so back to the project, the Kresge project. Which communities were chosen and why? Where are we going to see this?
Good question. Well,
thank you. That was actually from Margie in my ear, the producer.
Okay,
so I'll give her credit where credit is due. Good question, Margie.
Well, whoever thought of it. Yes. Well, basically, we at the Public Policy Research Center at the University of Missouri St. Louis advised this project. And I looked at the literature and kind of read up on this and studied it. And what you find out is that certain kinds of communities nurture the arts. Those are communities that are more racially diverse, more economically diverse, and more have more of a mix of a use and more of a pedestrian-friendly feel to them.
Why?
Those places are where people interact. Arts come when different cultures and different ways of life bump up against each other and create that creative tension. W.C. Handy, invented the blues here in St. Louis, the St. Louis blues, right? And that was really when the kind of ragtime and spiritual and other traditions came together to create the blues. That's what happens when you have this sort of urban gumbo of different elements, and that's what creates the spark of creativity. So we looked at neighborhoods in St. Louis, we picked neighborhoods that had that quality, and we, by the way, advised the steering committee. We didn't pick the neighborhoods, right? We just kind of laid out, well, here are qualities you should be thinking about. And we picked, there's Old North St. Louis, which is just north of downtown. I was just there a few hours ago at a meeting where lots of people were meeting to talk about what's going on in that exciting neighborhood. There's Skinker de Bolivar and then West End, which crosses the Delmar Divide, right? Yeah. That racial divide.
Right.
There is, right here, Midtown Grand Center, Midtown Alley, all the way to the Central West End. We think there's a lot of exciting things happening there that beyond the symphony, right, we could have embedded arts that could make a difference. And finally, the sort of Botanical Gardens, Manchester Grove area, where there's some exciting collaborations going on. So those are 4 neighborhoods. There are going to be focus groups, there's going to be interviews. We're going to try to figure out what is the network of artists, what is the network of existing natural clusters of arts, and how can we build on that?
So what do these embedded arts have working for them that, I don't want to say the iconic, as you put it before, don't have, but what do they have that's unique? Why are the embedded arts so important themselves?
Because people can participate directly in them. And they emerge, they're called natural clusters of embedded arts. And it takes decades for them to occur. And they're frankly kind of magical, right? Cherokee Street, where did that come from? Right. No one really plans these out. So you have to be careful, not like we can go in there and make the arts occur, right? It has to emerge organically. To give you one quick example, in Pagedale, where Beyond Housing is working on this 24-1 project to get these 24 communities, they've been working in the community of Pagedale, and they have this thing called the Pink House, which is an arts house in the community. and the kids are the ones who gave it the name, the Pink House, and they hold arts classes in there, and if they have nurses that come in there and help expectant mothers, and they have, now they're doing a thing where we're going to try to do development at the St. Charles Rock Road transit station. So we're going to do an art display, which is going to tell the neighborhood that this is coming and ask for their input. What do you think of having TOD, transit-oriented development, around this metro station? And we'll use the arts to engage them, to get them, what do you think about this? Do you like it? Do you like the idea of a high-rise, mixed-use project, or would you like something lower-rise, or what would you like to see? So it'll engage the community in that conversation.
So a fine balance between sparking it and letting it be natural on its own.
That's right. You have to be careful, because you don't want to, you want to kill off. We could go to Cherokee Street and probably have a bunch of planners and bureaucrats could kill it off, in a few years. But if you work with it, right, then you can make it really take off, I think.
Todd Swanstrom from the University of Missouri St. Louis, thank you so much for enlightening us and a little education there. We appreciate it. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Kelly Pollack with the Center of Creative Arts, COCA, as you know. But first, let's go back to social media. Ed is going to talk to us about what's going on Twitter and Facebook and other such places. Ed.
Well, absolutely. The tweets are coming in. People are talking about this. I mean, this is really a topic that I think it really drives people to conversation. And I'm just going to start off. So Stephen and Kendra actually brought this up. Said, what about the public arts? What about sculptures, things that are in the actual community? How does that drive the economic impact in our city, if it does?
Think about City Garden. I work downtown, and in the summer there's tons of food trucks there and tons of people who come there to buy lunch and eat outside. And I also think about, in the summer there's a lot of families who can take their kids there, they get to play in the water, and it's free. And a project like that has only positive impact on the city. So I think public art is something that definitely can engage everyone. It's sort of this equalizer of people, because anyone can enjoy public art.
Sure. What do you think so? As members of the community, what do you think so about that?
I think it's really important that it exists, because it's kind of like the other side of the high art, and it's the art that's actually pretty visible in the community. So it's really important that we have that, because with all the amazing stats in terms of how the economy is affected and impacted, that it's really important to note that that's part of it too. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's what's going on in the community that really matters, and that drives, again, community and civic, positivity and whatnot. So public art, I think, is probably at the core. It's probably it's the nucleus of it.
I don't want to leave you out of this conversation. You're over here to my right, but I want to ask, Tom made a great point too. What about the creative class? This idea of freelancers, graphic designers. I mean, these are artists as well, and they work for mostly company. A lot of them work for nonprofits, but also for big ad firms. What about that as far as driving the economy for a city, for St. Louis?
Well, I think with the graphic designers, I think what's really important is that their designs help advertise what's going on in the city. This very, that aesthetic can help local businesses and things of that sort. So even though they might work for a company that's their job to make art, to get paid for it, but that's also what helps our community. If someone can make a poster that could tell about a local show going on, a local restaurant, that could drive business there.
I also think the local design community has a lot of influence at a national level too, because there are a lot of clients that local firms work with that are national, big industry, and that's of course good for St. Louis too.
And a lot of the graphic designers that I know, they also do things on their own on the side, maybe not with graphic design, maybe they're musicians, maybe they're artists, so they also have that outlet as well.
Sure, that's that creative class. Keeping it here really builds the St. Louis and the regional brand. What is working? I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, you're out there in the community. let's talk about that. What's working right now?
I think to me what works is art that's genuine, you know, that speaks to truth and that is born from the communities. So I find myself, I was able to work on a level that was pretty much detached and very organized and very corporate versus being like at the grassroots level and creating art with people in communities. And I think when you have that core element to it, that it tends to resonate well with people and it does well. So a lot of things that we created in St. Louis from that perspective ended up being very well received on even an international stage because of the purity of it.
I didn't want to leave you out there, Terry. I saw you moving there.
I was just going to say that I think the great thing about the artists in St. Louis is that they're very community-based. They work with each other. They give back to their neighborhoods in different ways. And I think that's really important to growing the arts because it becomes community. It becomes a place that people can rely on.
I wanted to add, there was a study that came out last fall that Richard Florida publicized a lot that actually ranked St. Louis as a top 5 city for contributing to the creative class on a per capita basis. So this came up on actually this program last week, but St. Louis is really sort of able to play above its weight in terms of the arts and arts as industry because we have so much talent here. And I think that the positive impact on the community is that improves the quality of life.
I'm going to get one more tweet in here. Courtney, she wants to ask, how does the arts education fit into this conversation? I mean, and obviously it does. So how does it? What's your take on it? How does the arts education in our city affect the economic, arts dollars?
Well, I think in terms of in the future, as we have kids go to college and things of that sort, I think it's important they're creative because I think they would want to stay here and think of creative ideas that can grow from their neighborhoods. I think unfortunately, we talk about the brain drain, a lot of people leaving here, and I think the great thing about the art here is that people want to come back and make it here. And so I think having that art foundation here, they know that that St. Louis supports that. They'll want to come back and do it here again.
I think what's key too is that the story, gets out, and I commend the network for doing that and telling the story here today, but it's important that people know the impact of the arts and that there's also a sustainable community that supports what they're doing artistically, and that also it's a viable career. So it'll enhance people wanting to go into the arts education and the various programs because now you have parents per se that are not nervous about their children choosing careers in the arts like they may have done in the past. So I think it's important that story is, it's beyond social media, it's beyond just this network, but it should be really highlighted in terms of what the goodness is here in the city.
I've got about 10 seconds left. Tara, do you want to dovetail on?
I was going to say St. Louis has a great low cost of living, and so in some ways this is a great city to have arts as a focus, as a potential career, and I hope that we encourage more young people to pursue it.
Well, we've of course asked not just you, our community representatives here, our contributors, but we also asked more people on the street what they thought about arts and dollars and how it impacts our city. Let's watch that.
I think St. Louis is a thriving arts community. I think there's so much room for people to be able to have some little idea, have some little scheme they've concocted, and be able to make it happen here.
So I just think Edwardsville and the St. Louis area, going back centuries, is a great place for art.
There's arts, and then there's the culture, the museums, all of those things. I mean, there's so much that's available that's free or really affordable.
Sometimes a lot of people go through and they just sort of, they live in St. Louis for so long that they don't really pay attention to it. They just sort of go through the motions of their daily lives. They don't go out places. They don't see everything that's going on.
I think that St. Louis is a brilliant city for the arts because it's so cheap to live here and to find really great spaces for artists. They can, it's inexpensive and you can live and work in some of these places. The buildings are amazing. It's just, the city is so inspiring.
Okay, welcome back into the studio. As we kind of move towards the end of the program, we have Kelly Pollock from Cocoa with us to help distill. We've covered a lot of ground tonight. Yeah. This is evidenced by my chicken scratching here. I'll just start generically with you. Anything kind of make you go, aha, tonight that you're glad we're talking about?
All the above.
Okay.
I think, one, I think it's important that the numbers are impressive, that the arts really are an economic engine for St. Louis and our country. And you can see that both on a citywide level and as we're talking about local communities and just for quality of life, people's pure enjoyment, enrichment. It's what makes us human, is to express ourselves through arts. And so so we know that intrinsically as human beings, that I don't think there's anyone would deny that music and visual art and theater plays a part in our life, but to see the economic impact coupled with that, it becomes a really powerful driver.
Yeah, I think livability might have been the first thing out of anyone's mouth tonight. But let's talk about the money for a second there. You see artists working and you have you got the pulse of the community. That's a lot of money, $500, almost $600 million. But is it a place where individuals, would you say, can the individual painter, entrepreneur, artist make a go of it in St. Louis? Do we have that kind of environment?
We have a great arts-rich environment, I believe. At Cocoa, we have 250 artist instructors we employ, and while they're not full-time and they're employed at a variety of other arts organizations as well, they couple that and they can make a great living. This is a great arts community here in St. Louis, and one thing I think it's great, the topic we're talking about tonight, to make people aware that it's a big engine. We're known as a sports city, but we have the ultimate thriving arts and cultural community here in St. Louis, and amazing artists who are doing great work here and choose to make St. Louis home. And I think the conversation tonight indicates we should really embrace them and actually partner with them more so to develop our communities.
Let's talk more about the power of the arts outside of money. Perhaps we heard from folks in Belleville, Chesterfield, in the city, talking about what the arts can do for collaboration, for identity. Do you see that, and does that resonate with you? Does that sound true in our community?
Absolutely. We work in neighborhoods and schools and in businesses as well, and the arts are powerful in all the above. We've seen it on a neighborhood school level where the arts can engage parents and families in the school culture. Attendance goes up, they can engage kids in learning. We do a lot of work obviously in arts education, and so it's a big driver to engage people in learning. It's a vehicle for lots of learning.
Well, and Randy Cohen from the national perspective was talking about how the arts can really help kids turn around a path they may not otherwise want to be on, or we may not want them to be on.
Right.
Do you see that? I know Cocoa works with young people. Do the arts grab a kid's imagination and change the course of their life? Is that too dramatic? And
no, I don't think so. We see lives transformed every day. That whether working in schools or in the studios, that it's a spark to engage them to a place where they can be successful, or maybe in school. In traditional, standardized academic learning, they may not find themselves, but the arts give them a way to make meaning that's relevant to them, it's personal, and so they can express who they are. And when you can do that with people, you connect them to what's meaningful in their life, and they get on a path to success. And we see many kids that find the arts as a way to find a path to college, post-secondary, and may not have found that spark otherwise.
Well, and that segues into something else too that both Randy and then Dan Tierney from RAC talked about earlier, was that the arts can actually make for a better job force.
Absolutely.
What do you make of that? Is that something, because we hear all about innovation and creativity and jobs of the 21st century. Where do you see arts playing a role in that?
I think it's a huge role, and I would actually say that the arts are going to play a major role in fueling our economy going forward. We heard a little bit about Richard Florida, the creative class, and another study that was done by IBM with CEOs indicated that creativity was the #1 skill set needed to thrive in a very complex world. So I think as things become more automated and science and sophisticated analytical tools are universal, they're across our world, the really ultimate competitive advantage is human creativity. And the arts, through the process of creating art, we talked a lot about art as a destination tonight for performances and whatnot, but the creative process of making, it's really where people really develop creative competencies, and creativity is a muscle. We can develop it. We heard earlier tonight Randy say that it was elusive to businesses. They're not sure how to get their workforces the arts are uniquely suited to develop those competencies. So developing grit, a way to focus, persevere, take risk, to collaborate, to divergent thinking, that there's not one right answer, but there's multiple ways. That's the way artists work and the creative process works. And so the going forward, and at the same time where creativity is considered the #1 skill set needed, we recently heard that creativity for the first time in our country's history is declining in our students, in our youth.
Wait, say that again, because I think that might be important.
I think it's very important. I think it's a really critical thing that our country needs to pay attention to, that while creativity was identified as the #1 skill set that CEOs indicated was needed in the workforce, they found a study that creativity measured against 50 years is now declining in the students in the next generation. And so just at a time when we need it most, it's declining. And so I believe strongly that the arts are a way to get us there, to really fuel divergent thinking where there's multiple answers and ideas. It's really, again, as I said, it's the competitive advantage that businesses are going to have in an increasingly automated world. So I think the arts are actually going to be the answer for business and for our economy on a large systemic scale, as well as in communities and as destinations to drive it, that they're actually the foundation of learning to develop these skills.
And not just, the romantic artists might say those are all great, but the arts don't need to be completely justified for us to appreciate them. They have,
Absolutely not.
They have that livability, that inherent value that they come with, they bring to a community.
It's the ultimate power. We have an intrinsic value in the arts that that everyone knows to be true. But they're also a great vehicle and a pathway to achieve many other art outcomes. And we heard tonight too, when they're partnered with businesses, with city planning, when people come together, they can be a very powerful tool. So I would contend they're the ultimate answer to really fuel our economy in many ways.
You know, when you and I were tiptoeing over here to try to be quiet while Ed was talking, you mentioned to me, we have a pretty significant standard set for us in our most famous artistic symbol.
Absolutely.
Tell me what you think about, expound on that thought that we were
Well,
kind of talking
and as the head of an arts organization, we believe strongly in the arts. And again, we're known as a sports town, but the most, iconic symbol of our city is the Gateway Arch, which was a beautiful piece of sculpture, of public sculpture. And so the arts really do help both as individuals as well as a city and a community express who we are and make us authentic and reveal what it is our city wants to express and who we are as people. So I think St. Louis has more opportunity to embrace the arts and to have it demonstrate who we are as a city, and you can see that happening in other cities across the country, Austin or Portland, they use the arts to express who they are, and so that's what we can do more of here.
Thank you very much. Kelly Pollock from COCA, thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We're going to have a little bit more fun. We went back out onto the street and we asked folks, what's your favorite art venue in the St. Louis region?
There's pretty much a back area downtown. It's like these buildings that someone did a lot of, not graffiti, but wall art. The sort of painted up walls, took a decadent building and just made it beautiful.
My favorite arts venue would have to be the City Museum because it's interactive and there's just so many different types of art available to participate in there.
I guess I'd have to say the pageant because it is the closest to campus. It's the one that I've been at the most. I've been to several concerts there and I've enjoyed them all.
There's a lot of a cappella groups that are really popular on campus, so that's a lot of fun to see.
There's dance studios all throughout the St. Louis, East St. Louis, Edwardsville area, and everybody just is really into it, and it's very professional, very serious dancers and arts people too.
For more local stuff, I do like the Art Center, Edwardsville Art Center.
We go to the Gaslight Theater in Central West End pretty frequently. I like that it's a really small, intimate space.
On the south side, in South City, they have a diversity of different type of artists coming from different parts of the world. Tile Grove Park sometimes have a lot of different art festivals.
Well, we just went to Powell Hall to go see the symphony, which was really good.
Very cool, yeah.
And the St. Louis Art Museum in Forest Park is also really nice.
Well, you could see we heard a lot tonight from you, and that's part of Stay Tuned. And so a theme we kept hearing over and over is this idea of public art, and how that really is an asset in our St. Louis region. And also a great tweet from Garrick was talking about how in the last segment we talked about arts education, and that is a critical thing. So we really appreciate that tweet as well. And so we want to remind you, I want to remind you that you really play a part in this, our live studio audience. And so I'm going to now toss this back over to Casey, who's going to talk about our last bit of the show.
At our last bit, and this bit, it's not funny. It's not really a bit per se, I guess, but it doesn't stop here. We're actually going to take the show from off air to online. That's where all the cool kids are watching, and the main cool kids are around the table here. So we appreciate you sticking around. Do you have a little bit of time?
Okay.
We'll do a thing. We'll throw it up on the web. We like it when he says that on the Daily Show. I'm going to go get my iPad, put down the pen and paper. We hope you'll join us online. If not, stay tuned until next time. What are the issues that are important to you and to the St. Louis region? Share your insights. We want your ideas for a future episode of Stay Tuned. Call 314-512-9009 or email us at staytuned@ketc.org. Would you like to be a live audience member on Stay Tuned? Email us at audience@ketc.org. And you can always connect with Stay Tuned on Facebook and Twitter. Time on Stay Tuned, we're examining Missouri's Medicaid debate. As part of 9's ongoing coverage of health issues, we're weighing the cost and benefits of expanding the program. Medicaid expansion impacts you, so what do you want to learn? Connect with us online and stay tuned.
You may sit down, Mr. Douglas. We're moving on.
For everyone old enough to have the courage, but young enough to have the curiosity.
Okay, we're back. We're still, well, we never left, I guess. We're online now to keep this conversation going. First of all, I've always wondered, the audience does such a good job of tweeting and participating. I kind of want to hear what they sound like when they applaud for themselves, audience. Just makes them... Probably gonna have to mic that and pipe in a little extra, I feel like. Okay, so my brain is a little fried, so somebody take it over and tell me what you wished I would have asked you or Ed would have asked you and we didn't tonight. Where should we have gone with this conversation? You're the closest, Alonzo, so go with no pressure. But
no pressure.
What's on your mind as we go into the post-show of this show?
Well, specifically, I wanted to hear more about musicians. You know, I'm a musician by trade, and it didn't seem like there's a lot of talk about music. And
Todd, talk about the blues.
The blues, St. Louis blues, you know, but it's an interesting thing that sometimes music is somehow not always grouped in with the term arts. And as musicians, I can speak, if they will let me be their speaker, but we kind of feel left out of the conversation. Like arts feels like, oh, it has to be a painter or a sculptor. So I'd like to really hear from that community, and you know, I'd like to actually let them know that it's a great thing that we're part of such a robust economic force here in St. Louis.
And do we still have I mean, it feels like the blues days and that part of our identity is long gone. Do we still have, do people still come to St. Louis for a certain kind of music or any?
I think we're known for the blues in terms of the history, you know, and of course the obvious new thing is, you know, with rap, with the advances of Nelly and folks of that nature.
The new Blues Museum apparently is going to be in downtown, and they're raising funding, and it's going to put us on the map for the blues.
Right.
I think we have actually a really booming music scene. Unfortunately, I think because the region is so fragmented geographically, politically, socially, it's hard to get people out to see live music. I think that works against us, but that there are a lot of great bands and a lot of great musicians performing regularly, producing a lot of work here. And unfortunately, I wish that more people went out and saw them.
So are we more, because we talked about how folks from St. Louis will go to Belleville for the arts. I mean, do you think it's more likely that we'll travel for something like that than it is? Why is that? I don't know. Have you seen that at all? Or?
Well, I was going to say, I live in University City, and Blueberry Hill and Chuck Berry and the statue, and apparently he performs once a month. He's in his 70s.
Mm-hmm.
But even though you could hear it better, there's probably a better on a CD. There's something exciting about seeing a rock and roll Hall of Famer, in person, right, in the flesh. So I think people still want to see it in the flesh. They want to see it. See them, instead of it all smoothed over, and everything, done electronically, to see it up live.
There was a few mentions of Cherokee Street throughout this program, and I did want to just mention that a lot of the sort of regeneration there, I think, has come from the music scene. There are a lot of bands, recording studios, and venues on that street, and more every day. And I do think that the music scene is a very big part of rejuvenating some of these neighborhoods that we've seen come back.
We're definitely a music city when it comes to art, I think, historically. I mean, we have theater and visual, but music is kind of the foundation here, and I think that's what keeps popping up time and time again. I do wish we had talked about local arts in general, more artists in general, especially independent artists.
You mean like an individual?
Right, just independent, who are not a part of a nonprofit or not a part, not a part of a theater group, who are on their own.
Don't have a network supporting them.
Right, and sometimes I think that's what we don't always support. We'll go to the theater companies, we'll go to the big venues, but we don't always go to the individual. When we talk about musicians, we always don't go to the individual artist stuff, when they really need our help, and we think sometimes that they're not worth it, or we think they should play for free, or whatever the case may be. But I think those are the ones that we really need to start focusing on.
Should I confess? I mean, is it sometimes you have like one night off in the week and you want a sure thing? I mean, you know what I mean? Or to go discover. That's kind of a bad mindset.
Sometimes.
I wonder, St. Louis, I think, has this sort of, Eeyore syndrome that everyone talks about, that we are our worst cheerleaders, but I think that sometimes being a local band actually works against you. In some cities, like if we're talking about Austin, for example, people want to go support their local bands. And here it's almost like, because you're local, you must not be as good as a national act. And I think that's a pretty unfortunate way of looking at it, because there are a lot of bands who leave the city and actually find bigger fans in other cities, and it's a big surprise to them because their St. Louis following isn't as strong as maybe it could be.
I was going to piggyback that. That's exactly what happens, is that, in terms of a local setting, they're not as appreciated. And a lot of times we have to leave as musicians to discover that success or have that type of support. And then we were able to come back at that point. But again, initially, we don't have that. And I think that's something important that, me personally, I'd like to add to the landscape here in St. Louis, is that outlet for the local artist, local musician who may not be aware of the opportunities in nonprofit organizations and all the other things that they can do to grow their brand.
Margie's on tonight. Margie just told me that I saw Stacy nodding her head. So why are you nodding your head?
Well, I would agree, and I would also say, just like it is for musicians, for artists, a lot of times you have to go away from St. Louis, get a name, and then come back, and then you're somebody. So I think somehow we have to change that dynamic. And to your point too, I think with the music scene, the artists, sometimes the only venues that they have to really have a voice is in a gallery setting. Well, not everybody goes to a gallery. So how do we expand that dialogue to make visual artists and musicians more of the mainstream of what we're seeing and interacting with on a regular basis?
St. Louis is not a big art buying thing when it comes to visual art. They'll go and see performing artists, but not necessarily will go and buy like an $800 painting that is worth it, because it does take a lot of time, and art is possibly very expensive, but they don't really buy that visual art. And so that sometimes hurts the artists, the visual artists who are here. They'll have to go to another city and put their stuff in another gallery to get paid, which is unfortunate.
Juan, something I wanted to talk to you about during the on-air show that we never got to, Pruitt-Igoe and bees. What does that mean?
Well, I mean,
what are you working on, I should say?
Well, I mean, to kind of, as an artist that works and lives in St. Louis, obviously, there's many different aspects to art, a lot of different types of artists. The masses probably are familiar with your traditional gallery kind of situation with art. But artists all around the world work with different mediums, and I particularly like working with communities. I hardly ever sell anything. I have exhibitions, but I get most of my projects are done with communities and stuff. So the Pruitt-Igoe Bee Sanctuary is a public project that I've been working on for the last 3 years that is addressing creative strategies for vacancy. I'm using the Pruitt-Igoe lot as an example with this kind of like conceptual proposal that connects the depleting bee population with shrinking cities. And then also connecting, another thing that artists do is that they bring perspective to a different topic, so Pruitt-Igoe is really, a lot of it is focused on like the negative history. And I like to, kind of reverse that and see how we can take this negative and turn it into a positive,
I'm pretty sure anyone watching this online knows Pruitt-Igoe, but just to be clear, this is the housing complex that was hailed as the solution to a lot of problems and then eventually demolished as a symbol of everything that was wrong. And we have a vacant lot there now, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, the project itself is awareness of, how we have potential, my projects are always about potential of space, potential of a vacant storefront or a vacant lot, our kind of, daily day grind, it's really easy to go for the big fix or the traditional strategies of development. Artists kind of bring like, let's just put this on pause for a second. Let's see if we can switch this around and and get more people involved, get excited about just being creative and how can we activate certain cities that get overlooked.
Yeah, that kind of goes what we were talking about a little bit over there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that occurred to me tonight in the conversation was this idea of creativity and having a dream. Martin Luther King didn't say, I have a nightmare. That's not what gets people excited to act. He said, I have a dream. And the arts help people to dream, right? To think about something that's not there presently and what could be there. And every time I walk to school, right as I walk into the UMSL campus, there's a quote from Carl Sandburg, nothing happens without first a dream. I think it's a great quote. You got to have a dream.
And in Belleville, was it organic at first, and then it developed into more people got on board and kind of had like a snowball going down the hill that gets bigger?
Definitely. I mean, when we started Art on the Square, I actually called a lot of my friends that had worked on different projects with me and kind of handpicked the committee. But then once it started, it just kind of snowballed, and we have 600 volunteers over the weekend that help us produce the event. And of course now we've expanded into year-long activities in the schools and in working with children of deployed military. And I think more people have just come and have offered to help, and local artists with our Gateway East Artists Guild that's on the east side of the river, they've been very, very active with us, and we're so pleased that they have come on board too.
Kelly, you finished the program strong for us. We appreciate it. I'm giving you a break. Now I want to know what else is on your mind. You're taking all of this in.
One thing that I would just add to the conversation is we talked a little about collaboration and some of the social dialogue that you're talking about, kind of giving people that dream and that idea, that we haven't really addressed the power of the arts. They're very inclusive and they bring people together. And so when we have social issues and we need social dialogue, you can also think about it, just in terms of diversity and people that may not fit in our mainstream. The arts have a very unique way of bringing people together, to finding synergy and harmony and voices. And so I think that's one thing too, that in St. Louis, we obviously can use the arts, I think, as a force to really create that dialogue, to bring people together, diverse people together, to talk about issues. And you can see that both, I think, on a community, on a neighborhood level, and even in our institutions, but also, just people on the streets, that when you have neighborhood projects, as many of our kind of city and neighborhood folks have talked about tonight, people come out, they start working together, they start through the act of kind of doing and talking about art. It's a powerful tool in the dialogue.
Okay, you brought up something there. I thought I saw Steve Smith in the audience from the Royale. Steve, are you over there still? So, hi, Steve. Steve had a tweet here. Undervalued in economic impact for, tweets are hard to read sometimes, but he's talking, he's talking about, I'm just going to retweet that and then pretend like I knew what it meant. But he's talking about the immigrants in St. Louis. Let me just put that word on the table and see where it goes. Are we missing something in this conversation there?
Well, I'd echo just to the point that they are inclusive, and I think there's a lot of evidence out there in terms of the economic impact of having foreign-born citizens in your city, and we're low in that regard, that we know that we have a disproportionately low amount of immigrants. And when we bring cultures together and people together, the arts are very important in that role. They express culture and who people are, and it's a way that we can come together and understand each other instead of being, divisive about things, about issues and cultures. It's a way to bring people together. So, one, I think we need to use it to attract more immigrant populations to St. Louis, and then to celebrate kind of who we are as individual people.
I think of Festival of Nations in Tower Grove Park that the International Institute puts on,
Good
and
food.
that's great food, but there's so many elements that involve the arts, everything from the culinary arts to music and crafts and whatever, and tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people go to that festival over the weekend, and that's pulling in people from all over. And as someone who lives in the city, I often forget how many people don't live in the city. And then we have a festival like that brings people in, and I think it's really great for that neighborhood and really gets to connect a lot of sort of disparate communities, ethnically, culturally, geographically separate people all get to come together, and that's my favorite festival in town because of it.
I think too it reminds us how important the cultural traditions are that I think are slowly eroding in many ways, and so the immigrant culture through a festival like that or exhibitions or a variety of things really helps remind us how important those roots are, and to continue to perpetuate that, because I think especially in today's world that kind of goes away unless it's brought to the forefront.
I think the culinary arts, you mentioned food, Casey, it brings people together. If you go have a good Mexican food, or you go to the Hill and have Italian, or you pick up some barbecue, you're really experiencing another culture, and you're crossing that divide, like you said. And I think St. Louis is great that way. I think the food scene here has become more and more interesting, it seems to me. And people love it, and it's one way to kind of bridge some of those social divides.
Okay, well, that made me hungry, so let's call it a night. Thank you all for your time. Good job, guys. We appreciate it very much. One more time, practice clapping with the audience. There we go. I don't know if we have to sign off or not, but we'll call it a night. Ken will roll the music.
St. Louis region. Share your insights. We want your ideas for a future episode of Stay Tuned. Call 314-512-9009 or email us at staytuned@ketc.org. Would you like to be a live audience member on Stay Tuned? Email us at audience@ketc.org. And you can always connect with Stay Tuned on Facebook and Twitter.